Hello, my friend, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Full Rights Again, the podcast where I, Jinx, your host and imaginary friend, discuss topics such as plot development, world building, character creation, and even character motivation. If you've ever asked yourself the question of what happens when you release a rider into the wild and he gets a chance to explore the world, then this is the podcast for you. So please stay tuned. With that being said, let's get the show on the road and answer the dying question we had from last episode. What happens when you release a rider into the wild and he gets to explore the world of extreme sports? In order to answer that question, I have a scenario for you. Okay, so imagine the year is 1999 and you're a kid living the best life you can and enjoying summer vacation. And one weekend comes around and you really want to do something, but all your friends are being lame and they don't want to do anything because they're either hanging out with their family, doing chores, stuff like that, leaving you all alone. Instead of being depressed and down about it, you decide to flip on the TV and see if there's anything worthwhile to watch. Your normal cartoons aren't on, so you kind of flip through the channels. Eventually you come across a competition, and you kind of know what it's about. You've seen competitions before because you've watched the Olympics, and you weren't really impressed with the swimming and the acrobatics that people were doing on that stuff. But this competition seems different than all the other ones you've seen so far. For one, there's no normal swimming. It's people on bikes and people on skateboards and things like this. And you get intrigued about it and you continue watching, and gradually you realize it's a competition for extreme sports. You've stumbled upon the X Games. And as you're sitting there watching it, you see history made when one of the skaters pulls off an insane trick. He does a 900 on his skateboard. And from what you can tell, this is the first time it's ever been documented. The entire crowd goes crazy at it, and you're just impressed that a skateboarder can get that much momentum and inspire that many different people. So after that, you decide you're going to start learning how to skateboard. You beg your parents for a skateboard, they give in, and you finally get what you want, and you start practicing. And you fall a lot in the beginning, because that's what happens when you're learning a new thing, but you don't give in to the pain of that. You decide to persevere and continue practicing. Eventually you get better, and years later, the X Games comes back, and suddenly you're invited to it because you've made that much headway, and people actually like to follow you in the sport. And you finally get to participate in the competition that got you interested in the sport in the first place. You are competing at the X Games. Now, will you create history like Tony Hawk did so many years ago, or will you just be another contestant? That's the story for you to tell. Okay, my friend, hopefully you enjoyed that scenario. Now, moving along, let's explain it and tell the story behind it. Now, I've been into skating my entire life. No, I didn't watch the 1999 X Games, nor did I actually see Tony Hawk pull off that move all those years ago. But I have been into skating my entire life, and I have been following Tony Hawk almost my entire life. Starting from an early age, I was playing Tony Hawk's Pro Skater on PlayStation, and I played almost every Pro Skater game out there. And when I eventually moved to a new state, I had a skate park in my backyard, so I did beg my parents for a skateboard, and they obliged and got me one. Now, I wasn't a great skater, but me and my buddies would go to the skate park almost every day after school or on the weekends and just hang out. And I busted my face open many times, dropping into a bowl or trying to pull off some trick. It's the nature of the beast. And I continued playing and skating through most of my school years. Eventually I gave it up, but that didn't mean I didn't follow the sport still. I still would follow Tony whenever he was doing a new event or all that, and when the Olympics introduced skating, I made sure to watch most of those events whenever I could, because those are cool to me. I like watching skateboarding competitions. And a few months ago, the X Games actually announced that they were going to be hosting an event in my city. So I decided, what better way to honor a sport that I love than to actually go to that event? How could I not go to the X Games when I have followed skateboarding almost my entire life? So I bought my ticket, VIP and everything, and decided to go because I wanted to see an amazing event. And X Games isn't just skateboarding. It's lots of extreme sports depending on the season. I went in the summer. They had skateboarding, BMX, and motocross, which were all really cool things to watch. And within each of those, there was a lot of minor events too. You had skateboarding, you had skateboarding for men or skateboarding for women, or you had skateboarding vert or street, or you had best trick for vert or street. And BMX broke it down too. You had park and best trick and all these different things. And it was really cool to see. I only was able to go for one day, but I could have easily spent the entire event, all 3 days there, just watching all the amazing athletes at it. And sitting there, I'm thinking to myself, what would happen if one of these athletes makes history and pulls off a trick like Tony did so many years ago? Is the crowd going to go wild like that? Are they going to record it because now we're in 2025 and we all have cell phones and can just record amazing stuff whenever we want? I recorded a lot of things there and saw a lot of amazing things. But I did get to watch one of the BMX contestants actually make history with a triple backflip on dirt. It was amazing to watch. I don't really follow BMX, so I don't really know what has been done or what hasn't been done. But I did sit there and listen to the commentary of everyone else announcing it and saying how awesome it was to see that triple backflip. And that led to me thinking, what happens when you witness history like that? 25 years ago, kids witnessed Tony Hawk perform a 900 and they got into the sport of skateboarding because of that. People who didn't know skateboarding or didn't watch extreme sports or anything like that, they knew about Tony Hawk pulling off that trick. It was traveling around the world faster than anyone else could do anything about it. It at one point became referred to as the trick heard around the world. That's kind of awesome. Now can you imagine if you were there to witness a trick like that? I don't know how well this triple backflip is going to traverse society and history like Tony Hawk did so many years ago. It could make it big, it could not. That's for history to tell. But what it can do right now is inspire others to take up the sport. And maybe in another decade, a young BMX contestant will perform at the X Games and make history based on his hero that he watched in 2025 pull off an amazing trick. It's not unheard of. I was sitting there and I was impressed by how many of the contestants were younger than me. Some of the contestants weren't even 18 years old and they were competing at an international level. That's amazing to me. It just goes to show that just like how a writer can be inspired by everything, anyone else can be inspired by it too. An impressionable kid can be inspired by something he watched on a TV and he may become the next greatest phenomenon. Maybe he gets a game named after him. Maybe he starts to be able to hold new international competitions around the world because he's inspired others to take up the sport. Now you may be wondering, how are you able to apply the X Games to your writing? And there's a lot of different ways for it. The best way I can really say is to use it as world building. We all know that there are the Olympics, but how many other competitions are out there that are for different events? Does your world have some kind of competition like that? Some major thing that every country participates in, or every kingdom, if you're doing fantasy, where they'll send their best athletes to one kingdom that's rotated every year to participate in? Is there a major one that everyone participates in? And how about this? If there is one major one, is there a slightly less major one that a select few participate in? So maybe you'll have a Olympics level type competition in your medieval fantasy world of sword fighting, archery, and jousting, and maybe you'll have an X Games level type competition of horse riding, horse racing, and trying to navigate through rapids in plate armor. Is that a realistic competition? No, but that's up for you to decide on what kind of competitions you want. The point being that you can introduce a level of international or inter-kingdom competition to your world And then you can also introduce a second competition that's for a more diverse group of contestants. Someone that doesn't fall into your generic athlete. Someone who didn't want to take up the sword, but he instead really just wanted to start pole vaulting on a staff to get over a river. That is for you to decide on how you want to incorporate that. I just know that from me going to the X Games, I'm now inspired to add these types of competitions into my world. And my world takes place in a modern society, so I really could introduce skateboarding and stuff like that. But I also included some science into mine, so I might include more of a scientific idea. Maybe I'm going to throw in a hoverboard competition, or I'm going to use some kind of scientific bike. Not an actual car, but something that people can go to a skate park or a bike park and do some insane tricks. And I can have it rotate wherever I have it take place in my world. Maybe in one of my books and stories, I will have the competition actually come to my town, my main town, and my main characters, they might actually attend it and just witness that. It won't be an actual plot, really. It's a setting, part of the world that one day there's an event there, so they go to the event, and that is where the official plot kicks off. They go there and they meet someone, and they just leave from there. It doesn't have to be the X Games. It's just a unique kind of setting you can have in your world. A competition. Everyone has basic things that they can include. Maybe I'll give it a setting for a first date. Instead of sending my characters to the movies and dinner, I can send my character on a first date to the X Games because both of them are sports fanatics and they want to watch BMX or they want to watch skateboarding. Maybe I'll make it a character motivation for someone else. A main character has a kid, and instead of being like their parents when they grow up, they're inspired to follow through with their extreme sports passions. So they start learning how to skateboard. And my main character, not understanding the passion of their kid and skateboarding, has to deal with what it's like raising a kid that is interested in skateboarding, and they have no idea what it's about. But they're there to either support them, or they're either there to discourage their kid from skateboarding. Multiple options. In my mind, the X Games can inspire so many different things when it comes to riding. You just have to have fun with it and make the most out of it. It might not be for you, it might not be for me, but you can throw it into a book and see what comes from it. You can make it super big where you're now kind of doing a mystery at the X Games, and your main character has to solve it within 3 days before all the contestants pack up and leave for a new city, and then the case goes cold because all the evidence is gone. Very big part of the story then. Or you make it very minor where, it's a first date and your characters go there, spend a couple hours, and they leave. And that's it. The rest of your story progresses. You could have chosen any number of settings for that first date, but you decided to go somewhat unique and choose the X Games. Or you make it a character's goal in life. They watched the X Games 25 years ago and decided they wanted to compete in those games in the future. So they are motivated to practice and do that every day. It might have turned their life around. They could have been a very bad kid not wanting to do anything, but they made a deal with their parents that if they actually studied hard in school, they would actually be able to buy that skateboard in practice. And if they started failing classes, the parents would take the skateboard away. Lots of options. And wherever that story takes you, that is up to you to decide. I'm just here to hopefully inspire others to use what's around them in the world. But with that being said, my friend, it is hitting that point of the episode where I have to start to wrap things up and call it a day. But before I do, I have a writing prompt for you. Write a story about a kid who's been training his entire life to compete at the X Games, and he's finally earned his shot to compete there. But the day before he's actually going to compete, something happens to him that prevents him from actually being able to compete. What happens next? Now, I don't care what happens in the story or why the kid can't compete. I don't care the genre. I don't care the format. It could be a full-length novel. It could be poetry. It could be flash fiction. It could even be just a one-page paper that you decide to submit to a news journal for publication. All I really care about is that you have fun with the story and make the most out of it. If it turns into something more, awesome. If it's able to inspire you to write a different story, cool. If you decide to just trash it and throw it away, all right, that's up to you. It's your story. But now, my friend, it really is time for me to call it a day and let you go. If you enjoyed the content of this episode, please like and subscribe. And if you have any writer friends out there, please send them my way. I'd love to have them listening. And please be on the lookout for the next episode where Jinx answers the question of what happens when you release a writer into the wild and he gets a chance to explore the world of music festivals. Ta-ta, have a good one.